Johnny Ward hiding behind a cushion after having a substantial bet on Manchester City to beat Liverpool. Not only did they not beat them, Flynn, they couldn't even get a result at Anfield. They couldn't even score. They were probably lucky in some respects to escape with a 1-0 defeat. It was a defining weekend in the Premier League, or certainly one that's turned a lot of my suspicions upside down. It's Johnny Ward and Flynn Goward and Trader Chat, but this show is primarily about Cheltenham, the 4 days. It's set in stone, and we're going to give you 3 horses to follow, 2 of which, from my perspective, you may not even have heard of, if not 3. Flynn has 3 as well, and we are counting down, I think, to March, and it is going to be a 4-day festival. If it were 5 days, Flynn, I might possibly go on hunger strike.
Yeah, look, I mean, they haven't come out and said whether this is set in stone for years and years or whether they'll review it in X amount of time. Obviously, great news this morning. The horse racing Twitter world very, very happy. I don't think anybody wanted the quality to be diluted. Didn't really see any need for 5 days. I think what's special about Cheltenham is that it is more minimalistic than the likes of Royal Ascot. I mean, you see Royal Ascot now, and obviously it used to be 6 races a day. It's now 7, and there's just extra races anywhere that nobody can remember. And we didn't want Cheltenham to become like that. What is important to note is the reasons, or one of the main reasons cited for Cheltenham not going to 5 days, and it's actually because of upkeep of the ground. I actually read the statement earlier, thinking that they talk about the fact that they didn't want to dilute the quality, and they've listened to the fans, etc. But there was not a huge amount of talk of that. It was just the fact that there was a review and they'd had consultations, etc. And then they mentioned one of the main reasons being the fact that they can't keep the ground good enough for 5 days, which I thought was a bit bewildering, to be honest. So when everybody's saying, "Oh, common sense has prevailed" and all this type of stuff, and I mean, one of the main reasons they've cited isn't a reason that we would look at all. So it will be interesting to see whether they give more details as to why they've not gone to 5 days, or whether it is just that one specific point. They did say the point about the ground amongst others, but it would be interesting to know the others. But look, let's just be thankful it's 4 days. When something is so good, sometimes there's just no need to change it, is there?
Well, that was the point when it was 3 days. They didn't need to change that. They didn't need to bring in Mayor's Race. They didn't need to bring in a Mayor's Novice Hurdle. They didn't need to bring in, I quite liked Fred Winter, but they didn't need to bring in any of these races, really. They could have stretched it a little bit, maybe made it a 3-day card with a 3-day meet with maybe 8 races or that. But I'm telling you, Flynn, the 3-day meet was better. And you don't have this, not one of the horses I'm going to give now. Fair enough, he's a couple of options that he would have had anyway. But like when you see a good mare now, she's going to go off odds on in the Mayor's Novice Hurdle. Who gives a shit? Like I want her to be taking on the good horses. I want her to be doing the Dawn Run. I want her to be taking on the geldings. But they've diluted it to 4 days. They're not going to probably turn their back on that. And if let's never ever talk about 5 days again, ever. That's all I'll say.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we had a 3-runner. Novice Chase, didn't we, last year with Bob Ollinger and
it was 4, but it was 2. And then it was 1.
4 runners, sorry. So,
yeah.
I mean, as a spectacle, the race is fantastic because of the 2 really good ones in there. But we don't want to have too many of those turning up. And if we went to 5 days, then we would. So, you could say that 3 is better. I never knew 3. 4 days was kind of when I was used to it. I think I kind of got into racing in about 2007, whenever Go Native won the Supreme, whatever year that was. I know. Gone down a long path since. So around the 2007 time, which is when it's always been the 4 days. Why are you putting that face, Johnny?
I'm just trying to think. Like, I hope you weren't betting, because I'm just thinking you would have been, what, about 7 at that stage, maybe?
How many years ago is that now?
2000, native is
15 years ago. Yeah, would have been 12. No, I mean, I always, well, I don't always tell a story, but there's a story of when I used to go and cut the grass for my grandparents. They had like a paddock, and I used to cut the grass on the tractor on a Saturday. Then we'd go into St Albans Market Saturday morning. I'd get the racing post, and they'd give me 15 quid for cutting their grass. And then I would give that to my stepdad, and then he would place bets. Not necessarily for me, but I would like pick them out for him.
It is responsible gambling week. I think we are who we are, and bet responsibly. I mean, it's a lovely story. It actually is a lovely story. Your grandfather, your father, mowing the lawn, St Albans, racing post. Love it. So 15 quid.
That's it. There you go. And then kind of got into it from that way. But look, just go back to Cheltenham. Very, very happy with where we are. It would just be good to see the kind of reasoning for the full review as opposed to just a very short statement.
It would. Maybe we've been saved by climate change in this one. In fairness, Cheltenham and Cheltenham did show this last year, where they had that horrifically bad weather for day two, and it caused issues in terms of the ground and all that. And I have a lot of sympathy for ground staff. I was in Mallow yesterday, and it was not biblical rain, but not far off, to the extent that there's been large spread flooding in the south of the country and so on and so forth. But I was working for Racing TV yesterday, and this is neither here nor there really, but I see tentacles. You sent me a message this morning of them giving me praise for my performance. This was like the highest praise you can get, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you were on Twitter, then you could have seen it yourself, replied, liked it, quoted it. But the fact that you're not on Twitter means that you couldn't answer it firsthand. I mean, you only found out about the Cheltenham news about an hour ago because you're not on Twitter and are getting the latest news. So yeah, you need to sort that out, I think.
Well, anyway, if you were listening to Trader Chat last week, we sort of went through the last day of the season at Ascot, and I think we gave you some reasonable pointers. I was dead against Inspiral at the prices, and I think we did sort of say, look out for, if you're trying to get involved in Baaeed, at least leave it late. And would the ground have put you off? What was the ring like? What was the vibe like? And I bet you're going to tell me we didn't actually lay much Baaeed anyway.
We didn't, because he was so short. I think I laid a 4,000 to 1 on. Just looking here from the office, we laid 25 grand at 4 on. So there were a few bets around. The without market was pretty popular. A day was around the even money mark, a little bit shorter. So again, that beat in the without market on course and in the office was big. And a very good result with Baaeed winning the race at 10 to 1. I mean, just spin through the card from start to finish, because it was one of those days where it kind of swung one way and then back our way as a
favorite in the first three.
That's it. So Trueshan very, very well backed in the long distance cup. Didn't think he was going to get the job done, really. It was to and fro between him and Coltrane in the straight. Laid at 15 to 8 in the morning, went off 11 to 8. Like I say, very bad result in the office and a bad result on track. The biggest bet in the office was 20 grand at 15 to 8. I laid 5 grand at 15 to 8 on the track. So we were off to not a very good start on the course.
Then Kinross, my man, you were very, very sweet on Kinross in the sprint.
Yeah, it was. It was the only bet I had all day, actually. So very, very happy with how Kinross went with 6 to 1 in the week, and obviously went off around 3 to 1, didn't it? So they couldn't stop backing Kinross, and it ran as if it was well backed. So very, very good result on course, actually, but not a good one in the office. The reason it was a good result on course was we laid 5 grand perfect power at 10 to 1, 2 grand Rohan at 13 to 2, and 2 grand dark power at 11 to 2. So a good result for us on the track. All the small money was for Kinross, but the kind of bigger lumps was for other horses around it in the market. Like I say, as you can imagine, not a good result in the office. Second favourite going in. Then the third favourite going in Emily Upjohn, that I really, really wanted to lay, and we did a little bit on course, but it wasn't the worst result ever. Wasn't a great result in the office, as you can imagine. We laid a good 9,000 to 2s. I think there are quite a few of those flying around, then a 5,000 to 4s as well. So Emily Upjohn winning, I don't know, it was possibly one of the worst group races I've ever seen, actually, on reflection. I think that. Yeah, do you think from the weekend?
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, Thunder Kiss, Insinuendo. These are horses that are, I don't want to say this, but they're basically Group 2, Group 3 horses over in Ireland. Ross Carby, who's something similar, finishes 5th. I don't think this is a vintage group in general. The likes of Tuesday. In fairness, I think Emily Upjohn, I backed her in Epsom. I think she should have won. She is very good. That brings us on to the QE2, though. I was dead against the spiral here, though. But is this a total could have done this in hindsight type thing? Was Bayside Boy not a kind of a big each way price on the slop? Would, like, New Bay horses, a lot of them, as we would find out the next race, they want a bit of soft ground. Favourite has a lot of holes in her. I more or less said this last week, because you can't have her at a short price. What happened in the rain?
Well, Inspiral was all the rage because of Frankie, but it was a bit of a mad SP return here. It returned 11 to 10. I mean, it was never. It was around like 248 on the exchanges. We were 5 to 4, even bits of 11 to 8 and 6 to 4 right before the off. So bit mad that it's returned 11 to 10. I don't know whether that's not to cast assumptions, but obviously Frankie had quite a few winners up until then, and whether some firms wanted to shorten up Inspiral for the SP and bog return. But there was a big differential between the SP of Inspiral compared to the on-course bookmakers compared to the industry, which is one just to note. We'd had 20 grand at 6-4, 10 grand at 5-4, obviously going off 11 to 10. That was in the office. We had a few bets in Spiral on course. I think I laid 2,000 at 11 to 8, and there were a few bits and bobs, but nothing massive. And like I say, obviously, Bayside Boy, getting the job done. There was some money around for Jadumi, actually. I never really shortened up, but we did lay a bit of Jadumi at 8 to 1, which ran a really, really good race. And Check and Challenge came back to a bit of form, which was good to see. The Revenant ran absolutely no race whatsoever, did it? I think the Revenant and the Spiral were out the back most of the way and didn't manage to get involved. But she's just a really hard horse to get right in Spiral, isn't she? Just on her day will absolutely trounce them, but she's just really, really difficult. Be interested to see if she comes back next year.
Yeah, I think it's slightly similar with Homeless Songs, and this is, we've seen a filly by Frankel win the Arc this year, but a lot of them are a little bit tricky. Frankel himself, we all know how good he was. He was not straightforward, and one of the things I love about racing in terms of it's incomparable really to any sport, maybe bar greyhound racing, is that you can see the generations implant similar kind of characteristics in their stock, and you can say, well, I remember that horse's dad running, and I can see similar traits, and that is one of the things with generally with Frankel horses, if they're mad short, and she's definitely cases. She's been turned over badly now twice at short odds this year. She had a massive layoff earlier on in the season because she wasn't right. They're generally not straightforward as much as they are extremely talented. Speaking of which, even though he is straightforward, Baaeed gets done. He goes down to start. He's gone off at 1-4, but you are sort of thinking we're 7 races in here. If he is going to get beat, today might well be the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a very difficult one. It's just end of the season, a long old season, and then the ground, and then the trip as well. So, I mean, he just performed really, really bad, didn't he? Way worse than he's ever performed before. Baaeed has obviously ran a really nice race, but I don't think Baaeed has reached a hugely high mark. I thought a day I probably should have won given the circumstances, but Baaeed pulled out more. I don't have a huge amount to say about Baaeed, to be honest. I never thought that he was in the same league as Frankel. We've spoken about it quite a few times. This proves it. I mean, if you listen to the commentary of Richard Hoyles for Frankel's win against Sirius Zager in the Champions Stakes, it's something along the lines of all comers, all grounds, all beaten. And if you think of Baaeed, we can't say that now because he's been in this terrible ground and it bogged him down. So look, he's a true champion. He's been absolutely fantastic for racing. He's kind of lit up the season on what I think has been a slightly underwhelming season, to be honest, on a lot of fronts in terms of quality. But Baaeed was the shining light there. But yeah, it was a little bit sad, and I felt that kind of sucked the atmosphere out of the place a little bit. I know it was the penultimate race, so it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but there was a real kind of deflation when Baaeed turned around, and then Jim Crowley was pushing him along, and he didn't have that real acceleration coming down the outside.
He didn't have that acceleration, yeah, and I it's a first world problem. His owner is very wealthy, but I do think it is on a sporting level is quite sad. I'd like to have seen a horse like that go unbeaten, and then you can have debates in the bars forevermore how good he might have been. He only beat what was in front of him. What more could he do? And now he was beaten on ground that wasn't bottomless, so you can argue the point. You had an 80 to 1 Springer in the last. Now it's time though for us to give 3 horses for the season ahead.
Just quickly on that last race.
Shellier at 80s.
Talk about this one quickly.
External Weld.
Yes. Yeah. So we laid Sweet Believer. I laid a monkey at 14 on course, and it's gone off 8. Then I also laid 13 to about Bash Grover that went 9 to 2. So we had the 2 springers in the market as the bogeys, and Sweet Believer looked the winner the whole way. But before the race, we had a punter come up and he was kind of like clambering over a few people when he said £50. And I thought he said number 10, which is Shellier. So I've placed his 50 quid at 50 to 1 at the time it was, handed it out. And then he comes back 5-10 minutes later and says, no, I wanted £50 on number 1. And I said, okay, I can change it for you. That's absolutely fine. Because obviously it's just a miscommunication. But I turned around and said to him, look, never change your bet. Or if you do change your bet, at least have a saver on the one. Because then you'd be fuming if that one were to come in, especially if you're like a recreational punter going in the week. If you're having hundreds and thousands of pounds on, it's slightly different because you bet to a method, I guess. But when you're a recreational punter and you look, just have a little saver so you can win your monkey just in case. And he actually came back to me after the race because obviously we changed his bet to Westwell, who got beaten, and Shellier went and won. And he came back after the race and said, "Oh, I'm absolutely gutted, but that's just gambling, I guess." So
Oh, he didn't
he
take
took
your
it.
advice.
No, he didn't. He didn't change. He didn't have a saver or anything. He just he could have won 2.5 grand and he went home with absolutely zero. But he took it very, very well. But I thought I should just enlighten that story. Simon actually wrote about it in his blog. I've had a few interactions with people on Twitter who were saying it's not true, who are just absolute donuts. But
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah. I believe you, Flynn.
Yeah.
And in fact, I'm not the only one to believe you, because before Bohemians and Shells on Saturday night, I'm on the bus, get off the bus, and this lad starts talking to me. He's a Bose fan. He goes, "I'm a big fan of your podcast." And I'm involved in 3 or 4 podcasts at this stage, so I presume he's on about the League of Ireland one. He goes, "The one with Flynn Goward." Unbelievable. Would you Adam and Eve it?
Aye. We got fans. If you're watching this, said viewer, then drop a comment so then we know your name for a future
And he wasn't
podcast or
either.
trader chats.
Yeah.
No. I bet he was a nice man.
He was a lovely guy. Anyway. He had a good line about Bose as well. He said, because Bose were in the process of appointing a new manager, and it was a long drawn out process, some fairly left field ones, but they're a fan owned club. And he said if Pep Guardiola got the job, somebody would be given out. And I am going to give out about Pep Guardiola, but not yet, because we're going to talk about a 3-horse for the season, starting with you, Flynn.
Yeah, so I think we'll go 1-on-1. So I'll give my first one. I think mine will be a bit more well known than yours are. So the first one for me is the Devil's Coachman. Look, we all know a lot about the Devil's Coachman, but I think there's a lot to find out still. Hasn't run since February. Entered multiple times throughout the year, but never ran in the spring. We didn't know if it was a ground issue or something like that. Last seen beating Ashdale Bob and Commander of Fleet, who obviously came first and third in the Coral Cup. I just can't wait to see him over 3 miles and over hurdles and just see what untapped potential there is. I think there's a real room in that stayers hurdle for a young and upcomer. So the Devil's Coachman for me, when he eventually comes out, to see what he can do over 3 miles over hurdles.
Okay, I'm going to go with Marine National in the. I think the Supreme. You are slightly gambling on him and running there, and not the Ballymore, but he's unbeaten 3 from 3. He hacked up at Punchestown Wednesday. I think he's going to run the Royal Bond, possibly run once before that. I don't really see an issue with this horse over 2 miles. It's very early days, but he has a bit of an X factor about him. Form slightly let down yesterday. I wouldn't worry about that. He's 16s, I think, with Star Sports. So 16s for the Supreme, and he's going to run a big race.
Yeah, 16 to 1 for the Supreme. Then the Devil's Coachman is 33 to 1 for the Stayers Hurdle. Turn that light back on quickly. There you go. I wouldn't put anyone off that 33 to 1. I think there's a lot of kind of fodder towards the front of the market. Blazing Cow's another one to look at, to be fair, in that market. But yeah, the Devil's Coachman would be my first one. Then the second one, who I don't think is going to be a superstar, but I think he's one to watch. And if you do follow him throughout the season, I think he'll pick up plenty of wins. And that's Tommy's Oscar. Who reopposed the other day, won a 2-runner heat, handicap novice, handicap chase at Carlisle over 2 miles. Like I say, I don't think he'll be winning big prizes, but I think that he'll just rack up plenty of wins. I think he can come out plenty of times. He jumped really well. He looked like a real strong traveller over 2 miles. Will go on any ground. I can see him picking up these races at Haydock and those type of tracks. So maybe not one to follow for Cheltenham, but just away from that, if you just want to follow a horse, see him have plenty of runs. And hopefully plenty of ones as well. I think Tommy's Oscar's one to look at.
He's putting up a horse who won a 2-horse race. I mean, this is unbelievable stuff. Right, I'm going to go for
better.
My next, nothing wrong with the winner even in a 2-horse race. My next horse is Comfort Zone, who's by Churchill. He is a half brother to Flying Scotsman. It was a decent horse for the same connections. I thought he was quite eye catching off 85 in the big handicap at Leopardstown, coming down the outside on Saturday. Has to go hurdling. If I were to have a suspicion now, I think he'll end up in the Boodles. But he's one of 2 juveniles I'm going to give, and I think he just has the makings of a hurdler, and he'll be probably trained for Cheltenham, a bit like Brazil last year.
And that's for the great man himself, isn't it?
It is indeed.
For the great man. My last one, again, quite well known, this one would be Brandy Love. Speaking to one of my friends over in Ireland this morning, I don't think it's any secret how much Willie thinks of Brandy Love, but thinking that it's the veterinary.
Just want to point this out now. Not his love of brandy per se, although I do know he loves an Armagnac, but he's Brandy Love as in he loves Brandy Love. He loves the horse Brandy Love.
I thought you were going to make a joke about Brandy Love, the person there, but you kind of went a different angle with it.
Is there a person called Brandy Love?
Look it up after, Johnny, and then you'll find out.
I'm having a shocker today.
So last seen beating Love Envoy by 8 lengths at Fairy House, Stacks of Ability. And I think it's the one that will put up to Epatont when we get to the Mare's Hurdle, because it looks like Epatont's going to go down that route. And they think that Brandy Love's just an absolute machine. So that would be the last one for me, would be the Mare Brandy Love.
And I kind of couldn't agree more with you there. And just in terms of Brandy Love, like I asked Willie for advice on an almanac for a friend's dad for Christmas. I wanted him to suggest like a good gift to get, and he didn't just suggest something. He left in a cask of Armagnac with 2 little glasses at the races for me to collect. And the one thing about Brandy Love is as well, she has to go left-handed, I think, to reach her potential, and I think she finally will do that. And speaking of potential, my final selection, just trying to get the spelling right here, is Mac Teague, who is owned by my good friend Paul Byrne, one of the brightest minds in the world, certainly Irish racing anyway. As is Emmett Mullins. They've teamed up for this axis of evil. If you're a bookmaker, they want to take you down, and they bought this horse out of Jim Bulger's. He ended up being rated the guts of 100 on the flat. Stayed quite well, but this kind of went probably a little bit unannounced at the weekend when he won at Auteuil. He picked up a pot of guts of 60 grand. They were well clear of third, and he's a 3-year-old, definitely going places for very, very good connection. So Mac Teague is my other one.
Lovely. I'm just going to throw one more in there. I know that we were doing 3, but there is one that I've actually bet for Cheltenham already. It's the one bet I've had, second bet I've had so far with the Devil's Coachman. But looking at the Triumph Hurdle, it would be Script Writer, who
We're giving 3 juveniles here. We are.
Yeah, I know. Juvenile City, yeah. Who's gone to Milton Harris, was previously with Aidan O'Brien, rated 102 on the flat, came 5th to Pispadil in the Ballysacks this year. It's gone to Milton Harris, obviously had great success with Night Salute, obviously winning at Aintree and ran a really good race at Cheltenham, etc. Has come out yesterday, actually. I didn't even see it come out yesterday until just now, and won by 2 lengths, really clear at Sedgefield, so nice little prep there. Hopefully we'll go to some of the juveniles at Cheltenham, maybe not in the October meeting because that's this week, but I would imagine maybe the November meeting, etc. So that would be one. I mean, any horse that's 102 on the flat it shouldn't be around 40 to 1 or whatever price it is to try and hurdle. I'll see if I can find a price. I think I took 40. We're 25, so it's not showing a huge amount, but the fact that it's with Milton Harris, who's done it before with these juveniles, and the fact it's rated 102 on the flat with Aidan O'Brien, there's not a huge amount not to like with Script Writer. So that's just another one that I'll throw in there as a little bit of a dark horse as well.
There are 3 horses that will not only not win the Fred Winter, but not win the Triumph Hurdle as well. But you never know. You never know. I think there's a good case to be made for all. Okay, let's turn to football. I was playing up this was before Responsible Gambling Week, but I don't think it was necessarily responsible. I was doubling down on my opinion on the match all week that Manchester City just had to beat Liverpool. There's so many holes in this Liverpool team. Arsenal are going to beat Leeds. They're going to be 17 points behind them. It didn't happen. I was watching the match as bits of it in Mallow, and when it was 0-0 at half time, I'm like, yeah, don't think this is great. Then Haaland scores. I look at the replay, it's fine. But then they go back and show that he's actually pulled back Van Dijk. Was it Van Dijk or was it Gomez? Fabinho even. He pulled back Fabinho. I was like, well, that's definitely a free. So then I'm like, this isn't going to go great. When Liverpool scored, I definitely couldn't really see Man City coming back, and maybe they do need to be in control in games. I've had a shocker here anyway. I called it all wrong. I put my hands up. I did my dough.
Yeah, look, it was a fantastic game to watch. I think the way it was officiated needs to be questioned, to be fair. What do you think of the whole officiating with... I like the fact that they're trying to let the game go.
If it's a foul, it's a foul. If it's a foul, it's a foul.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. So when I was hearing Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher and all that yesterday saying, we love to see them play on and let the game go, but it just went too far yesterday. I mean, players were literally being dragged to the floor, and then it wasn't being given. But then when they were going to VAR and when it led to a crucial moment in the game, then they were giving it, and that just can't be fair. You have to let the game go, but you need to draw up for a blow up for proper fouls, because then you're not just outlined when it leads to a significant incident or a goal or something like that. So I think that needs to be looked at. I thought Liverpool were great. Just in terms of the impact on the outright market, City are 4 on, Arsenal 11-2. That'd be the shortest Arsenal have been for years, I'd imagine.
Are you getting excited, young man?
I mean, I've been getting excited for ages. I'm probably less excited now than I was 3 weeks ago because I think our momentum's just stalling a little bit. We'll come on to Arsenal afterwards. We'll speak about the rest first.
All right.
But so Arsenal are 11-2, Chelsea 22-1, Liverpool 22-1, Spurs 22-1. Then you're 100 bar. In terms of top four finish, obviously City are 1 to 250. Then you've got Arsenal there at 6 on, Liverpool 2 to 5, shortened right up. Spurs 4 to 7, 4 to 6 Chelsea, then 9 to 4 United. We've got all the other markers up here. One interesting one, and someone who may look a bit of a price for top goal scorer. We have obviously Haaland in there at 1 to 9, then Kane's in there at 10 to 1, Jesus 33 to 1, Salah 40. Tony at 50 feels big because he's on 8 goals already, and we've actually got betting without Haaland for the top goal scorer. So we're 10 to 11 Harry Kane, 15 to 2 Jesus, 9 to 1 Salah, and then 11 to 1 Tony. That feels a little bit big to me. He's only one behind Kane. He obviously takes all the penalties. He's on a bit of a high. I don't think he'll stop scoring the goals. We're each way turns, 3 places of 5th there as well. So I don't think Tony would be a bad each way bet at 11 to 1, betting without Erling Haaland. But that's how the outright markets shape up after the weekend. I guess we can talk a bit of Arsenal Leeds now. Did you watch the game?
I did not watch the game. No, I was on the way to or in Mallow, and so I was obviously doing my job, but I did sort of think Arsenal would win. How did it go?
Leeds were very good. I mean, we were good in the first half. Probably should have been 2-0 up. Jesus had a decent chance. Obviously, Saka scored a really good goal with Odegaard's pass. But the second half, Leeds were very, very good. They pressed really well. They caused us to make mistakes. We lost the ball in really bad areas, but good areas for Leeds. So they just played really, really well. And we were lucky that Bamford missed a penalty. Obviously, they got given a penalty, and Gabriel got sent off, which was then rescinded, and then the penalty was also rescinded, rightly so, in my opinion. So we are kind of riding our luck a little bit at the moment, but we're just playing so many games. I mean, like the other top teams are as well, to be fair, but we travelled to Norway in the week, played on an artificial pitch in the freezing cold, coming back to then go away to Leeds, which is no easy place to go at the moment, Leeds. I mean, they're playing really, really well at home. So I think any top team will struggle to go there and get a decent result. So the fact that we got that, I think, is huge. But I think that we do just need a little bit of a break, or we just need a bit of an easy game where we can just pull off half of the players in like the 60th minute, and then just go again for the next week. Hopefully PSV in the week allows us to do that. But the fact that we're travelling to PSV would maybe think that our game then at the weekend is then going to be tough. Although I think that being away at Southampton, it's not going to be the most intense game. The thing that I worry about Arsenal is that the positive about our play is how intense it is. Everything has to be quick, intense, that really quick movement. Even Arteta on the sidelines, he's so buzzed up. Like everything's 110%. And I think that being like that so early in the season, you could burn out.
Yeah.
And I get worried about us burning out. But I think the World Cup in the space of the calendar will be really, really helpful, because we've not got a lot of top international players that will play every single game at the World Cup. So it gives us a chance to kind of rejuvenate. But then January also gives us a chance to go and buy a couple of top players if we are towards the top of the Premier League. We can attract them to come in, give us that really, really good depth, some really good legs. So I think that will help. But I think that we just need to kind of get through these next 4 or 5 games or whatever it is this month, and then we can just get to the World Cup and then regroup. So I am excited. Obviously, it's great to have a 4-point buffer at the top of the league. It's a bit mad to say it, to be honest, but I'm not kind of jumping for joy by no means yet. I was probably jumping for joy when we were beating Liverpool and Spurs, and now it's a bit more gritty, I'd say.
Final question for you. Name the one team in the Premier League which is unbeaten since Bournemouth's lost 9-0 to Liverpool.
It's Bournemouth, isn't it?
It's Bournemouth. Would you, Adam and Eve? It doesn't make any sense. They nearly won at the weekend, which would have, I think, brought them up to 6th. So anyway, maybe sometimes you should sack your manager. We have a few minutes left to wrap up. We've had a long show. We've gone through love-ins from fans, on buses, online, doing our brains, so on and so forth. Responsible gambling week. What else we got?
So I think it just is important to talk about responsible gambling week. We've obviously got all the links on the website and stuff like that. Do gamble responsibly if you bet, of course, if you bet online, etc., etc. So I know that we were jovial about Johnny's bet of the weekend and me giving my dad money for him and me to pick out some horses when I was younger. But I think it is important to talk about responsible gambling week, and just the fact that sometimes we do just need to reflect. We've obviously got all the tools online, self-exclusion, play break, if you want to just take a call off. So We can obviously point anyone in the direction of any kind of gambling responsible websites, etc., GamCare and all that type of stuff. So if you do need that time to reflect when you are gambling, then please do take that time out and read all the information that is available.
Absolutely, and yeah, I think we can completely all attest to that, and it's not a message that I'm giving out willy nilly at all. I've had nights where I've had a few pints. I bet woke up the next morning and I was like, "What were you doing? What were you doing?" There's always another day. Just take it easy, relax, and there's always 6 or 7 horses that Johnny and Flynn will give you that'll give you hope for the future as well. That was, I hope you will agree, an entertaining and informative trader chat, fresh from Ascot, fresh from Mallow, and fresh into the National Hunt season. And Manchester City, it turns out, are actually beatable. We shall talk to you next week.